Yes.
Okay, come to order. Call the public safety meeting for Tuesday, January 4th, 2023. And I'd like to have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And we have a special guest, my grandson Locke, is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Step up to the front here, Locke. As soon as you start, we'll all start.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Athenian, could you call roll, please?
Yes, sir. Captain Malott, I do not see him in attendance. Chief Mull.
Here.
Captain Christian.
Here.
Committee member Greenwald.
Here.
Committee member Rober.
Here.
Committee member Bercuda.
Here.
Vice Chair Hightower.
Present.
And Chair Lethway.
Here. Okay, the first item is we have a special presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Chairperson Bercuda.
Former chairperson.
Oh, you're
You're
chairperson. Emeritus.
Oh, okay. I'd like to introduce Susan Fitch and Phil Harris. They're co-team leaders for their community CERT program. Both are residents, longtime residents in San Clemente, and I really appreciate them being here to help us out understanding what CERT is and how we can help them and they can help us. You're on. Please come up and to the microphone.
Good afternoon. So let me give you a brief history of CERT and where we're coming from.
Yeah.
Okay. As you can see by the screen, we are associated with San Clemente. We're part of FEMA, and we're part of Homeland Security. Next slide, please. So after 9/11 and 9/11, the President recognized the fact that we needed volunteers who would work together and protect our communities against terrorism, national disasters, and crime. We are more involved with the national disasters. Right? So one of the things we've recognized is the fact that first responders, the police, the firemen, there's not enough of them. And when there's a national disaster, typically you need additional help. And CERT has been in existence since 1985. We've been involved with doing that type of thing, supporting our first responders. We've learned also to help people help each other. So where did this all start? In 1985, there was an earthquake in Mexico. We sent volunteers down there, and 100 or so died. And as a result, LAFD decided that they were going to create an organization. It was called CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. I've talked to volunteers who've gone to similar type activities, and the one thing that I have gotten out of it from them was they felt very unprepared for what they had to do. Next slide. So in emergencies, CERT can provide help and assistance to the city. And what we offer is, one, we're all trained, we're all certified, and we all have life scans. So we are part of the city. It's not like we're a separate organization. We are part of the city. We are trained in public and fire safety, fire suppression. Not trying to be firemen, but in the case of a small fire, we can help put them out. We know how to do fire extinguishers. We know how to handle a fire hose. So we've gone through the training of that. We've done light search and rescue, and although thank goodness we've never been called out, we have had the opportunity to train. We know disaster medical assistance, and that includes how to do CPR, how to use an AED, how to use a tourniquet, how to stop bleeding, and we also know psychology of helping victims. So the training we receive is a lot more than this. As you can see in the picture, the bottom one, we learn how to carry people so that we aren't hurt. And that's most important, is that we don't want to get hurt. Next slide. So we work with a variety of agencies. It's changed over, or let's say it's evolved over time. This is now an organization that's strictly here in San Clemente. It is nationwide now. I used to live up in Cupertino. I joined CERT when I was in the mid-90s. And I've been involved with that and with the CORACES, which is the communications arm of the organization. And you look around at all the disasters that occur within the United States, quite often you will see in pictures that are like tornadoes or hurricanes, you'll see people who have CERT listed on their back or wearing shirts like I am. Each one of us comes as a fully prepared member. We have our own equipment. We don't wait for anybody else. Each one of us have a backpack. In my case, I'm a ham operator as well, so I have communication skills. In the case of the picture there, you'll see we're also trained on how to carry a person.
Not me.
How to carry a person in case a backboard's not available. So this goes a lot of practical experience. Next slide, please. So San Clemente has a relatively young organization. We were founded in 2010. Part of that is the responsibility of songs. We had to have one here. When I came into San Clemente in 2015, I joined right away. And it was an easy transition from where I was in Cupertino. We have 2 elected volunteer leaders, Susan and myself. We've been elected each year for the last 8 years. And from what we can tell, nobody wants to take our position. So we're here for a while. We've also done training programs with city employees, residents. We've done outreach programs for houses of worship, mobile trailer parks, some of the local businesses, and we also communicate with our own membership. We have bi-monthly meetings. Now, during the pandemic, it got to be a little tough doing that, so we didn't have face-to-face. What we would have is Zoom meetings where we told everybody what was going on and a little bit of training as well. The picture there is our first meeting we had back a couple months ago, where we actually showed people all the new supplies we had. Now, we're a young organization, so only recently have we been able to get a lot of the supplies that we needed. Beds, cots, bandages, masks, generators. So we're prepared. We have a trailer and we have 2 C-vans. The C-vans have where all our equipment is. The trailer is set up in such a way that we can be mobile. Again, since we have our own equipment, we have our own backpacks, a lot of us also know how to use radios, whether it's a ham radio or an FRS radio. Okay, next slide. So one of the questions you might ask is, well, how do we get activated? Disaster occurs, a tsunami, an earthquake. We just won't show up. That's not part of the system. We have to be activated. And we get a call through Alert OC, and that comes from our coordinator, who works in the city. When they call us, then we start to show up. Up until that point, we are just private citizens helping. And the reason we don't come to show up is because, one, if we aren't activated, we're not covered with insurance. And that's really key. We're trying to stay safe, but once we're activated, we're now covered with FEMA insurance. Disaster service workers covered insurance. This is a map of San Clemente. It shows where a lot of our volunteers are. Each of those green dots is a volunteer. As you can see, a lot of the volunteers are south or west of I-5. Up in the very top, that's my location. At the far left side is where Susie lives, and we need to get a lot more people because there's a lot of San Clemente that's not covered. We've done training for about 200 some odd people. And the way we get people in is we do outreach programs, but we get people in with the intent that we are teaching them safety and how to protect themselves and their family. They go through the training session. It's 6 weeks long. We have a drill at the end of the session where we actually get them to try out everything that they've learned, either with dummies, mannequins, things of that nature, or if we're lucky enough, we get the high school kids who are in drama classes who would like to be victims. And they are great at it. They have a tendency to scream a lot louder than victims that we have. After that, we attempt to get some of the people to actually join us. Now, when they join us, they not only get some equipment that we provide to them, but they also have to get a life scan test. So until you pass a life scan test and take the class, you're not a CERT member. So of the 200 some odd people that we have trained, there's only 57 of us. Next slide. So we've tried something new this year. We've actually combined 3 cities into one organization called Tri-City CERT. We have San Clemente, Dana Point, and San Juan Capistrano. We are offering training classes twice a year. We have one coming up in April, and we just had one in October. The picture you see there is is the drill training, where we're actually having the people learn how to put a victim, in this case that would be a mannequin, on a backboard and how to move them from one location to another. When we're all done with the training and everybody says, okay, I want to join a city, and we've gone through all the city programs are the same in the sense that we are trained with FEMA-based instruction. They'll go back to their individual city and they become members of their city now. So of our last class, I think San Clemente got two people who joined us, which is, as far as those are, that's fine. Everybody else we know now can take care of themselves. Okay, next slide. So CERT's not just only disaster. We provide outreach programs where we can train people, and we can train people on the fly, in the sense that, when I say on the fly, we participated in the National Night Out this last 2 years. We've participated in the Ocean Festival many years. We've done blood drives. We have the Shamrock race coming up shortly, and we're also going to do the Swallows Day Parade in San Juan Capistrano in March. But all the places we go, we do outreach. So we'll bring people up to us, we'll train them, we'll tell them what's going on. We may even train them on simple things like how to turn off a gas meter, or how to turn off the electricity in their house and then turn it back on. We don't go into much more than that, but we hand them lots of literature. And it's in English and it's in Spanish. And so we give them plans, paperwork that is, on how to create an emergency plan, how to get out of the house, where to meet, who to contact. So we're on the web page. We have a page there so that people can look and see who we are and what we do. Again, we have a class starting in 6 weeks. It's 1 night a week. Typically, it's a Wednesday or Thursday. It lasts about 2.5 hours. It's hands-on. It's not just lecture. It's part lecture and hands-on, so people get a chance to really try and learn how to bandage somebody up, how to use a tourniquet, how to lift people on a backboard. And then the final half day is we actually say, go do it. We set them up. And we critique them. So it's not just do it. We take time out between each session, and we give them information as to, well, this is what you did right, this is what you did wrong, and don't be surprised about what happens. Now, the biggest thing that I've ever gotten after my years of doing CERT was, one, the knowledge, keeping my family safe, my neighbors safe, but 2, having the confidence to walk up to somebody who you see is in trouble and offering help. And I think that's the biggest thing that is going on. Questions?
How often do you give these classes?
Twice a year.
And how many weeks does it run?
It runs 6 weeks of classes. Each week there's a definite assignment, reading assignment along with it, and then the last half day is just a drill.
And how do you announce or advertise these classes?
A variety of methods. We put it in the city's, I'll call adult education training sessions. We publicize it through the webpage, through the outreach programs that we're involved in. We're constantly telling people about it that way. In San Juan Capistrano, I know they put up flags and banners. We do the same thing occasionally. I'm part of the Talega HOA, so I always tell people about that if I can, so that people are aware of it.
Is there anything on the city website that under events coming up is CERT on there by any chance?
I'm not sure, but we do have news items that we can put on. So let me confirm what the city website has, and if this is not added, I can probably get this added pretty easily.
That'd be good. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question, Phil. Oh, Janet, you're going to get up there and speak now? Well,
Just available for
let me
Q&A.
ask my question then. When you're activated, how are you activated? Do you go through the cell phone or VHF, UHF handhelds or whatever? And then when you're active, do you use your cell phones as part of that activity, the support that you did?
So we would be activated through Alert OC. We're on it. We've all been registered with it. Once a year, there's I'll call it a trial to make sure we all can receive it. We have a phone tree, just in case that's not working. Relative to using ham radio or FRS radios, that's once we're activated. And during the activation, we'll be told where to come down to. Now, the one thing I've asked people to do is not come down to the EOC because I consider that a danger zone for us, just because of its location, lots of chemicals, water. I would rather be up here on high ground.
Later on, I'm going to be talking about the wireless priority system that commercial phone companies have that allow people like yourselves to have a high priority over the cell network. So it's something, I don't know if you've heard of the WPS.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
I have. I'm not a member of it. I would use my cell phone as needed, assuming we have cell phone service. It's important that, again, my perspective is to have a backup. Backup is my ham radio. But we would make every effort to use the cell phones.
Okay. By the way, I'm KC6FZY.
I'm WA2KDX.
Okay, great.
Is that some kind of pronoun? What are we?
Yeah, that's my call sign. That's my station license number. It's on my car.
He's Africanese goose.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
Can I
Yeah, it's a code between the two of us.
let me add a little bit here. In the optimal way to distribute CERT throughout the areas, at least one person on every block would be involved in this thing so that they'd have a coordination thing in a perfect world. I think another vehicle to advertise CERT would be the Neighborhood Watch program.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that would be another recruitment tool for CERT and RACES and the other.
Neighborhood watches.
So that's what we're working on.
Okay, I would appreciate that. And we're trying to get as many volunteers, and we recognize the fact that 57 of us don't go very far, and we have to work in teams of 2, so we would never be, that just cuts us in half right there. So,
Absolutely. And not everybody's available. They could be on vacation or whatever, so that cuts it way down too. So thank you very much, Phil and Susie. I appreciate you coming in. And got another question?
First of all, I want to thank you for what you do. I lived in Granada Hills through the Northridge earthquake, and because of kind of a side job, I'm pretty well trained in first aid, but I saw some green hats down the street,
And we have neighborhood councils in Los Angeles that were funded through the city. And every CERT class, we bought the green hats and the vests and backpacks. We filled backpacks.
Yep.
Do you have anybody supporting you on graduation gifts like that?
We do. When you become a CERT member, you do get a green hat, you get a backpack, you get goggles, you get knee pads. What else? I think what I consider the helmet. Yeah, the helmet. The bare essentials of what it is. My backpack weighs about 70 pounds right now.
That's great, and I really admire you for doing this, and especially you're in an HOA in Topeka, and I am challenged with Neighborhood Watch, and I'd love to talk to you about getting up in Topeka. I've got one contact from Topeka that wants more information, and as soon as we can work with the new chief and find out who we're working with in the sheriff's area, we want to get some meetings going, and we want to get it activated.
Very good.
So, thank you very much.
I have a question for Susan. Just since you're here, and what is it like to be on CERT from a distaff from your point of view?
Well, I came into CERT. I'm a critical care trauma nurse, and I retired from working at many years at a hospital. And I heard about CERT training, and I thought that was something so different, being out in the community versus like in a clinical setting, And then I read more about our medical operations and the triage, and when you see anything on TV where there's been like an active shooter and you see all the different tarps, and we learn all that. And I thought, oh wow, this is something I'm really interested in, and that's how it all started. Since then, all the additional training that in light search and rescue, acknowledging terrorism, just disaster psychology. I mean, it goes on and on, the training that we receive. And we don't only just receive this training that we give twice a year, but we get ongoing training, and we've had guest speakers from fire and also the, sheriff's department, as well as medical. So I'm always learning, and I really enjoy that, in addition to leading others and building a strong team and keeping the program going has been our passion. This all started way back when we had emergency managers. Now we work with Kyle Koger, and I want to recognize him and give thanks to him, as well as the Public Works Department, because they're the ones that have really supported us. They're the ones that have financed a lot of the emergency supplies we now have available, that we would like our first responders and our chiefs to know that they're at the city yard. 2 large Connexes full of stuff, as well as our trailer. So, we feel we've made some leaps and bounds over the last years to prepare our city and our citizens with emergency preparation.
Great.
I want to say at the public safety night out a couple of months ago, is that CERT had a really nice presentation there, and I know a lot of people were interested. At first I thought that they were the OCSD SWAT team, because they had so much equipment and everything laid out there. It was very, very, very impressive, and I know people were really appreciative of learning about this service. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to the minutes. Everybody been able to review the minutes from the last meeting?
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Good job, Antonio.
Oral and written communications. Mr. Atamian, do we have any cards or any communication?
The city has not received any written communications.
I see Chief Malad has arrived.
Yes, thank you.
Is there a red T in the time book on that for being told?
No, I'll just read it. Let the record reflect that Captain Malott arrived at the meeting at 3:17 p.m.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman,
Oh, yes.
we have a new chief of police.
We
Is that
do.
right?
I was
Do you
getting-
think we should, are you gonna introduce?
Absolutely. That was my next order of business here. We do have a new chief of police, and I'm going to let him introduce himself, but there's a couple that I have had the opportunity to meet and speak with him a couple of times, and I think everyone knows how impressed I was with Tony Benfield, and I've got to say that Chief Christian appears to be at least Tony Benfield 2.0, and there's one big mark in his favor, and we've never had this before, and I think this is going to be a really interesting dynamic. I think it's going to be a big challenge for Chief Christian, but I think it's going to be a real big benefit to us as he's actually a resident of Tolega. And we've never had it, since we've gone to the sheriff's, we've never had a chief of police services who's actually resided in the city. We've had former residents, but never one that's currently in the city. And I know he's already had lots of contacts from his neighbors, I'm sure welcoming. But anyway, with that, I'd introduce Captain Jay Christian, and maybe just give us a little bit of background, how you ended up here.
Yeah, I got lucky. I know Tony Benfield set this up pretty well for me. I know he did a fabulous job here as the chief. I'm very excited to be the new chief here in town, and like you said, I am a resident, so I do have a vested interest in the town. Pleasure to meet the committee and the chair. I've already spent some time with you, as you said, so looking forward to establishing these relationships and the ongoing communication with the residents here in San Clemente to make sure that we're meeting their public service needs. Just a little bit about my background. I've got 25 years in the department, about 9 years in operations, me and patrol, and another 9 years in investigations. Worked here in San Clemente in 2019, 2020 as an investigator. Also worked in our homicide bureau and our special victims detail before leading our North Investigations Division as a sergeant there. So very excited to be on board.
Anybody got any specific questions? Okay, I want to say I think a lot of us were concerned a few months ago when we found out that Tony Benfield was leaving. We knew we were losing Chief Capobianco at the same time, and it was a stressful time for people in the city, and we were looming a new city manager was coming in. It was really a time where we weren't very certain what was going to happen, and I think we're so fortunate. Got Chief Mall to start with, who has worked and lived in this city and done service for the city before, and then Captain Christian, and I think we really lucked out. And actually, I think our new city manager looks like he's going to be a really good addition also. So I think we're a few months ago we were going, where are we going to be? And I think now we're really optimistic about where we're moving the city. I don't think it was just luck. I think it was some kind of divine intervention, karma. But I'd like to thank you guys and welcome and moving forward. I think we're going to do some great things. And I just hope that Captain Malott decides to stay around for a while. Okay, so now we're going to go on reviews and recommendations. We have some information on the CARE ambulance.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how these two items were in there. They're in bold and they're underlined. I was thinking that they would really come under probably the statistical information review section under 9B, but we can go ahead and do that now if you want to.
Is there
If
any
you'd like to discuss the ordering of the agenda, that's fine. This was discussed originally with the committee when it was formed in 2019. The reviews and recommendations of the performance measures are different than the work plan projects for the committee. And the reason that they're different is because every year the work plan projects are independently identified and reviewed and approved by the city council. Reviewing performance measures is the only thing that the municipal code requires the public safety committee to do.
Okay, real quick. So these are like scheduled. We break them up for these special reports is basically what it is. But I mean, yeah. So that's what it is. That's why we agendize these as we've broken them up into every so often.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
However, they don't have to be done this way.
Right.
In other committees or commissions, this is how it would be done in a similar stance, but that doesn't mean that.
I'd like to leave it on the agenda because if nothing else, it's a reminder for when the police stuff comes up that we can do a little bit extra homework, whatever we need to do before we make the report. I know Charlie's been working on this anyway, so I think this is going to go well. But when it's the police ones, I'd like to have the reminder so we can get together and, present more effectively.
Well, I would suggest, I talked to Chief Mall about, maybe at this point he could talk a little bit about the two reports, the one that you put together, and then the one Orange County Fire Authority puts together that's released to the public here. At this point, that's okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Yeah, that sounds good. So I can speak to our reports for the OCFA, not so much for the care ambulance. Is there anybody speaking to the care ambulance?
There's nobody here on
Okay.
behalf of Care Ambulance.
Okay, perfect. So I'll speak to the OCFA reports. Just to clarify for everybody's awareness, the statistical data that you get on this form here, those are built into quarters based off of fiscal year. So you'll notice the most recent one you have would show second quarter totals with 1479 at the top. And then when you get your report here that comes from my office, this is because it goes to the public that we do it in quarters of the year, if it makes sense. So when people are reading this, they're getting the October, November, December. Whereas when you look at this performance measure, the second quarter essentially is those same months, but it's just delegated differently. And that was how it was written into our contract. I had to clarify on that myself to kind of find out why those two were different. But I can speak to the report itself, just to kind of work through it, if that makes sense, and then I can answer any questions. But you'll notice first, I'll just go a second quarter of the 22-23 year. For the OCFA and San Clemente, we had a total of 1,479 calls. Those were divided up. We had 1,279 medical aids, 35 fire calls, and 165 miscellaneous type calls, which would be calls for service, calls for back to beds, service calls to homes for miscellaneous. Fires out, reported out, just checks. So many different types of miscellaneous calls. The report's broken down into showing how many inspections are performed. First and second quarter, you can see there was 105. The inspection load comes out to San Clemente to our crews beginning of the year. So you'll notice in the next couple quarters that those numbers will go way up. As there's a great amount of business inspections within the city that we do. And then you go down to efficiency, where it goes with our response time. So you'll notice for second quarter, average response time being 7 minutes and 10 seconds. And it's pretty much standard. I went over the last few years, pretty much about where we're averaging out. Our call load is going up every quarter, just with the busyness of the city. And so response times, just for clarification, takes into account all different types of responses. Our units work off of what's known as AVL. Essentially, there's a tracking system in all of our fire engines that will recognize closest unit when a 911 call comes in and dispatch that unit. And so, depending on how long those response times take, all calls are taken in, and you get an average of about 7 minutes and 10 seconds for that. One thing with that is that AVL data has been somewhat difficult to track accurately. We're moving as an agency towards a new program known as First Watch, which I think will really help with our performance measures going into the future. As many agencies use First Watch, I used it in my prior agency before coming to the OCFA. But essentially, it collects real-time data as far as from when the 911 call comes into our system, when it's answered, how long it takes to get through the system, to the crews in the station, their exact amount of time to get on the fire engine and start rolling wheels. So it's a really, really good program, and it will give myself specifically and everybody within the agency and the public can see it as well, real-time data to show what is one snippet at a time, what is our average response time on today, or what was it over this past week, and it'll give us much better measures to use when we're trying to track that response time, as we're always trying to find different ways to decrease response times. Obviously, 7 minutes, from time of dispatch to getting on scene of a call, we want to lessen that as much as we possibly can as an agency. So that new program will be a really great program for us. A lot of agencies use it, and it helps us identify ways that we can restructure our stations in a sense, where our crews are, where our apparatus is even staged to lessen the amount of time it takes to get from inside the station to the engine to get to a call. So we are working towards that. Our dispatching system, I just wanted to speak to our dispatch system is incredible. Our dispatchers, like an average of 1:30 is kind of what industry would say is okay for getting a call into dispatch and actually getting that call out. Ours average a minute per call getting dispatches out. So that's not on the typical report, but that is something that our dispatch center works really hard to achieve that, and they're really fast. And with that new program, you'll probably see the statistics being much more lined out and easier for you to read, but it does line that out. Let's see. And then it goes in. I'm sorry.
What was your response? After you get a call, dispatch calls you, how long does it take on the average to get out?
So get out time, that's the one that's the hardest for us to track right now.
Yeah.
But the goal is to get out times under 90 seconds. But it varies, and then it also has a hard time with AVL, because AVL will ping every once in a while when you're already halfway down the street. So with this new system, we'll be able to get those much more real time. But response time for the get out time, essentially when the tones go off to when the crew is on the engine rolling to the call, that's what we're really trying to increase, and kind of increase our awareness of what that time takes, as well as increase the knowledge of our crews of times to get on there. So sometimes it's a little longer, and with this new program we can notice trends. Maybe middle of the night, crew gets woken up in the middle of the night and they're upstairs sleeping, like some of our stations here, and they need to get all the way down, so that get out time's a little longer. So it helps us identify those and find ways to make those better.
Is there some kind of like benchmark, that 7 minutes and change? Is there like some kind of benchmark?
So we had a company called Citygate a few years ago do a report, and for the OCFA, as overall, from call coming into our dispatch center to firing and pulling up in front of the house, we aimed for 8.5 minutes was kind of what they came to. So that's one thing, to be honest, with the report that I would like to update going into the future for these performance measures, is to have that more accurately reflect the call coming into the actual fire engine showing up, because that's obviously what the citizens care about, is when they call 911, how soon are we going to be there? But if you do look at that, the 7 minutes and 10 average response time plus the minute call time, we are kind of falling in that benchmark. But that's something that we're always working to improve as well. Let's see.
Would positioning vehicles or staff help, you think, in the future in an optimum manner? You know, if you get a lot of calls from Tulaga and not so many from South San Clemente, maybe more people there in Tulaga than...
It does. So what it will do is, and really with this new program, is it'll give kind of heat maps within the city, depending on times of days, to let us know where the busiest parts of your city are. And that's always how fire services has decided where to put apparatus in the first place. All of our rigs are all paramedic engines, so they're pretty well strategically placed. There's only 3 stations. But yeah, so I would say, the south end of San Clemente, where Station 60 would be, that's our busiest area. It's real dense. To where out here with Truck 59 is probably a little bit slower call-wise. But yeah, that data will help us evaluate that and make sure that we do have the rigs in the right places.
This document that Chief Mull provided on the second or third page has a heat map, and it actually, the stations look really well placed based on the heat map. Yeah. I mean, if we wanted to look at adding personnel or whatever, that, like Chief Mull said, that southwest part of town would probably be the target, but the stations look like they're right in the middle of those heat signatures. So.
You've got a triangle within a triangle too, for spacing.
Yeah, and we use those heat maps for any kind of statistical, and when we place stations, fortunately, San Clemente did a good job of placing their fire stations, as you see in that map there. Obviously, as the city becomes more dense, that map gets a little busier. And just something to remember too is, Tulaga gets built out and things. We're a regional fire service, so these are our stations here, but just outside those lines, you have Station 29 in Capitol Beach, Station 7, and then Station 56, now that La Plata comes through, has a truck that can service the back part of San Clemente as well. So when I'm looking at my division, which covers all those cities, I look at these heat maps and make sure where fire apparatus is staged is actually meeting all those needs within those. So, but yeah, you are correct. The stations are in the right place. Whether you can increase personnel to the stations, things like that, is city direction. But that's kind of where we are there. We are meeting the response times, but of course we're always working to get those less and less. And then as you just go down the report, just to help you understand under effectiveness, there's the on-site inspections, plan checks, our personnel that work through those, they work hard to make sure those are all done in a timely manner, which you can definitely see in that portion right there. And just like I mentioned, going into the future, as far as performance measures for us, accurately portraying response times, call times, get out times, and actual rolling to the scene times is probably one of our biggest goals going forward, and things that I'm looking to increase. So we should see some better numbers coming real soon, because that program literally just launched a couple of days ago. So I'm excited to see where that can move forward to. But if that hopefully helps with the explanation there, and we'll for any questions.
Bill, that answered that was very good. Thank you for that. But one question for the new people on the committee here that will be doing the statistical tasks. Under contract, the way your performance measurements are to be provided are like you've got there: the workload, efficiency, and effectiveness. So those are basically what the City of San Clemente's contract at OCFA. And then the other document is this one is put out by your agency itself, and it's got a whole lot more stuff in the back. And I was trying to correlate this report to your report. And this report says the average number of calls is a month. I guess this is all Orange County, 422 down in the lower right-hand corner of this thing. And your report up here says the number of calls is, at least in one, it varies around 1,400 calls a month. So we get 3 times more calls here than at the county level. I'm not sure what the difference is.
So you're speaking to this 1,479 calls. That is per quarter, so that's over a 3-month period.
Oh, that's a quarter.
So it's a quarter. It's a 3-month period. So on average, it's about 422, and that's gone up. Looking over the last few years, it goes up almost 100 per quarter. Year to year, it seems like some quarters are busier than others for us. So that call is going up, but that 422 takes the entire year into account and says on average about 422 calls for medical aids alone, and then you have the fires and the miscellaneous underneath that.
And the City of San Clemente's calls are in that number?
Correct. Yeah, this is this report that you get. This comes from my office here, and my admin assistant is fantastic who puts these together. But yes, that comes out of our office, and it's specific to San Clemente. It's a newsletter just for you. Well, like for instance, if I were to give you the full OCFA report for that last quarter of December, just December alone, calls that came into our dispatch center was 16,557. So we don't break it out. Those numbers are available for the entire agency, but that's just we try and keep it specific to San Clemente in the newsletter for you.
Good job.
Okay. Any other questions for?
I've got an observation. It seems like the e-bike thing is heating up more and more and more. When you break these items down in your report that for San Clemente, they have, traffic, collision, medical aid, auto versus auto ped type thing. I'm not sure how to do this, but we're trying to get a handle. Our group here is trying to get a handle on e-bike injuries and collisions and stuff like that. So between the sheriff's department and the fire department, there's a lot of data there, but it's not specific. And then on top of that, you got bicycles versus e-bikes, which makes it difficult too. But we're trying to be sensitive, because I know the city council's really kind of looking at this thing. And I know the residents, that we're getting more and more e-bikes on the street, so it's we got to be real sensitive to that and see if we can capture that data.
And yeah, I'm glad you asked about that. Actually, we are capturing now data on, because South County specifically, the e-bike incidents are going way up. And so we are starting to capture data via our electronic patient care reports for when it is specifically an electric bike. That wasn't a code up until very recently that you could put in. So that is something that monthly I've been tracking and bringing to the staff meetings if there are any e-bike incidents that happen within the city. But that will show up in our future reports, as well as lithium-ion battery fires. That's going to be another one that we're going to start tracking. It's pretty much across the nation, the lithium-ion battery fires, that, you know, the e-bike batteries, tool batteries, things like that. So those are more performance measures that we are going to start tracking, really just to educate people on the dangers of riding them, but also the fire danger to it too. So that is a good point. It's definitely not lined out in here, e-bikes, but that could be easily, especially in this report, seeing as my office makes this report for you, we could put the e-bikes in there if that's something that you're interested in, because, which obviously you are.
I mean, would it be possible even before the next report comes out? Is there any way that our subcommittee could glean that information from you?
Absolutely. I can get you our best numbers that we have. And like I mentioned, it's all via an electronic patient care report that our paramedics do on scene. Up until very recently, there hasn't been a button to collect exact e-bikes. So right now, my admin assistant goes through every vehicle versus bicycle or bicycle accidents to see if there's anything in the notes to say it's an e-bike. So we can give you best guess at this point of what we do know, and then going forward, it will definitely be tracked. So I can keep those numbers coming too.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to have monthly for our meetings, just for interest, because I know citizens are constantly contacting, emailing me and asking about what's the situation with the e-bikes, and I think if we maybe had a number, well, here's actually what's happening, and maybe if we also glean specific San Clemente. I think, having a county-wide is fine, but the city statistics would be really, really important if we could start getting those.
Well, also, I think probably, I was going to bring that up, that the police department, the sheriff also should be supplying that kind of information to the committee if you think it's valid.
Yeah, I was going to ask, we're getting, look like it's still on track to get our new crime analyst person for the city, and from what I've heard, this person's going to be really, really good. Not only they're all over neighborhood watch, they're all, but I think, isn't it a medically retired LAPD officer? Isn't that who we're getting?
It is, and he's slated to start February 10th. We just got word from our HR, so
awesome.
That's definitely on track. As far as tracking the e-bikes, that wouldn't fall under his shop, our crime analysis. So he's a crime prevention specialist.
Okay.
So our crime analysis is a different detail. And as far as I know, I don't think they track the e-bike statistic. I can find out if it's something we're looking into. Like Shane said, it would take the crime analysis to actually go through all the collisions and accident reports.
And it's something we mentioned a while ago, but like when you're doing, what you use, like the CHP accident forms, is that what you guys use?
Yes, that's a standard form.
It seems like they should be adding a check for an e-bike or something on those. I mean, that's a state form. It seems like it'd be something so easy to do that they could keep track. I don't know. Maybe we talk to Lori Davies. Maybe that'd be something interesting. Maybe that she could pursue and get done.
You know what practical is? You have to reprint all those things, and it'd be millions of dollars just to reprint them. So, other than the rubber stamp that you put on each one of the reports and then check.
Well, they actually print them up more often than you think. I wouldn't talk about our old reports, but for what's that?
Are they on paper?
Well, then they actually are on paper.
Of course. Yeah, they're still on paper.
Yeah, just traffic.
Maybe step one is we make them electronic.
I think that's
and then we can update them whenever we want.
But then you would be able to erase them and change them so easily with the I'm look. I know it sounds archaic, but I'm telling you, it would be tough to do as a as like an input, because you change them so many times and change the diagrams and change the measurements. I mean, I think that's one reason they are like that. I mean, you remember. So, but yeah, you would think. But then that info is input somewhere, and that would be the place that they could input it. Maybe anyway, well, it'd be something that maybe I'll contact the CHP person and see what they think about it. Maybe we could look into that. But we're not going to tax you to do it, though. So.
Yeah, Rick, I had a couple of things here.
In your spare time.
Yeah, really.
One thing, a gentleman out there, Fred, are you there? Yeah. Fred, I talked to him, and thank you for coming to the meeting, but I want to recognize you. Fred Mathis is chief deputy, is a retired chief deputy from the Los Angeles Fire Department.
Oh.
So I talked to him, and he's very interested in giving a hand here and what we're involved in. So appreciate you coming.
I will mention there is a process now that we didn't have before, and it was actually because of Mike. Your subcommittee, if it's fire performance measures, you can actually employ a ad hoc person to help out with that, and I think that Fred sounds like will be a great asset if you were to do that. So.
Yeah, the other thing I have is we do have an ambulance report. Was anybody prepared to discuss that? I don't know if it got distributed.
Well, it's under our items. It's in the book, and
is it in the book?
It is. Yeah, you go back to the last thing in the folder here, and it's the fall. And I got to tell you, and I was actually going to ask Scott, because doesn't Ontario, don't you use your own ambulances, right? The fire department?
No, we contract.
It's contract also. Okay.
Contract with AMS.
Well, I'm looking through these, and the stats, I have no idea whether they're good or bad. It says, they get the code 3 calls within 10 minutes. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Right. I was going to actually ask Chief Mall about this. Chief, not asking you to speak to their report, but their report does seem to have a couple pointed statements regarding OCFA's unilateral change to dispatch criteria and it affected FOG's response times. Can you just speak to the change in the dispatch criteria?
Briefly. I'll give you as much as I just actually recently learned seeing that in there. So from what I understand there was a period of time where during COVID specifically, because you can see this was in I think 2021 that we changed that, we unilaterally made that change. There was a time where we were requesting them to respond code 3 to pretty much all calls because there was such a shortage of us and them getting to the calls. As of recently, we've gone back to allowing them to do their normal triaging of call dispatch procedures, which they're more built to respond code 2. There's a percentage. I think code 2 85% of the time and code 3 15% of the time. And so I think that's what they were speaking to here is more of, there was a point where we were, hey, we want you on code 3 on every call because COVID was so crazy busy. But we've gone back to it's their normal day-to-day routine. That being said, if a crew is on scene of a call and they're coming code 2 and we need to upgrade them, they're great. They upgrade code 3 anytime we need them to, but it's not an automatic, you must come lights and sirens every call now. So I believe that's what they were speaking to here, but it has gone back to normal dispatching.
And then am I reading that right, that under their normal dispatch criteria, they're pretty compliant. They're meeting their time standards pretty well. When they were under everyone's code 3 all the time, it was tougher for them.
It was hard, yeah, and that's really why we kind of went back to where we're allowing them to work under their normal standards more too, so we can get more of a baseline of where are their standards at. But yeah, they are meeting their standards under their normal dispatch procedures.
And that contract is with. Sorry, maybe I should know this off the top of my head. Is that contract with the city or is that with the LEMSA?
With the city.
Okay. And then does the city, maybe Adam can speak to this, does the city give them exemptions? Because ambulance compliance reports are notoriously built in with exemptions so that the ambulance company can meet their marks when sometimes they're not?
The short answer is no, I don't have any of that information. The city manager's office oversees the that contract.
Could I make a request that on this item, that maybe the subcommittee, and maybe Fred would like to help out, and maybe even with some communication with Chief Malt, could you guys look at this and maybe come back at our next meeting and kind of give what you think is going on? Is that something we could do? Because like I said, I look at all these numbers, I just go, well, I have no idea what they mean.
Absolutely, because if these numbers are true, they're doing a good job. If these numbers are full of exemptions where 80% of the time that they don't meet their mark, they don't have to count that because they've been granted this exemption or that exemption for whatever reason, then the numbers tend to not be as reflective as what is actually happening.
And Adam, could we get access to the person or persons that would know that as far as the contract and the exemptions? Is that something we can figure out?
Yeah, it's a management analyst in finance who gives us these reports. I doubt he's going to be able to come here and speak to the efficacy of the service provided by
But could they provide that information to the subcommittee about the exemptions? So,
I think it would be better if I just provided you the contract and have you read over the terms of it, and then if there are specific questions, I believe in the past we've had a representative from Care Ambulance come and speak to us. That's not part of their contract, so I can't guarantee that they would come here without wanting compensation, but
we just call
generally speaking, people are receptive to having opportunities to speak about the service they provide. So I can have Natanya reach out to
well, maybe before we bring them in, maybe you do an analysis, or maybe there's no reason to bring them in. But it'd be good.
It'd be interesting to read their contract.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll send out the contract the next day or so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I have a letter from Bob Campbell, who's their FLEC Manager of Business Development and Government Affairs. I don't think that was put in the book, so I brought it here. I think it's different than what you got, Scott. But just some of the numbers, and it was addressed to Matthew Smith, management.
No, it isn't. They're talking about this.
No, this
it says Mr. Matt Smith.
This is different. This is
that's different. Okay.
This is a different letter. The reason I bring it up, there are some statistics in here about the fourth quarter of 22, so we're jumping ahead to going back to A in section 7 of the agenda, that they responded to 1,276 calls, transported 755 emergency ambulance patients in the city of San Clemente, and that about 59% of them responded and actually taking people to the hospital. So about 60% of their calls are actually, taking the people in such a condition they need to go to the hospital. And I'm going to talk later on, though, but they also talk down here, strategic posting and the addition of short shift remain an option if improvements in the system are desired. And he refers to a letter June 24th, 2022 that he sent to the city. So I think that committee probably ought to investigate that suggestion. If they can improve their service by just relocating ambulances or something, you probably should explore that option. So maybe Natanya, you can make a copy of this letter for the rest of the committee that they can take home and take a look at. And they did. Well, I guess we have this too. Right. Yeah. And again, they go workload, outputs, efficiency, effectiveness, prototypical San Clemente contracts.
Nick, yes.
This is half the story. The other half is when they get to the hospital, they call it wall time, or the technical term is APOC, or ambulance patient offload time.
Right.
Okay. We're very, very fortunate that we have this contract for 2 ambulances, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're exclusively ours, and by contract, and the city pays them $1 million whatever to maintain that. We are not expected to do mutual aid to other cities when they need ambulance. However, the other way around goes is when our ambulances are out at the hospital and stuff, the ambulance company, the last time they were here making that report, said that they will
backfill.
back in.
Right.
So we're very fortunate that way, but we had this contract there since 2016 as a result of the closing of the hospital here. And that's something, because we have no medical thing, so we're very fortunate there. Anyway, half the story is they don't list how long they're out on holding the wall, waiting for a bed in the emergency department. It's the fire department has the same problem, right? So you got this contract. That's only half the story of how much to respond to the thing, but you end up having all these resources out of the city.
Okay, and so, I mean, that's nothing they show in their statistics, because technically we never have anybody out of the city, because they're backfilling all the time.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But we don't know that.
But we don't know that. Okay. And while they backfill, but they could be backfilling from, I don't know, Seal Beach or something. I mean, technically, if that was the closest unit, that would be, the response time would be longer, you would assume.
Wherever they
coming
can
from.
find backfill, because you have a major thing, a mass casualty incident. You're going to be pulling people from all over the county on this stuff. So
that's why when it says 10 minutes, I don't know if that's good or bad. And that, if they were sending somebody from a long ways away, that would certainly make the response time higher, but that doesn't mean it's bad if it's within whatever their benchmark is or whatever. But that would be interesting to glean.
There are instances when minutes count getting people to the hospital, and I've talked to some of those people, and they're very thankful that the ambulance or the fire got there within a couple of minutes, because their doctors told them if they'd been 5 minutes later, you wouldn't be here. So this is extremely, extremely critical.
So we'll look at the whole picture when we analyze just not only response times, but so they go off to the hospital. What do we have in between?
How many calls came in between?
How many did they lose? We couldn't respond to it because we had the rigs out. Those type things. So something else to look at.
Any other questions? Okay, so next meeting, hopefully we'll have a little bit more, at least be able to, you guys will be able to decipher it for the rest of us. Okay, any new business? It says none. That was a question, Adam.
There is no new
There is none. Okay. All right, unfinished business. We have the evaluate the ordinance concerning street side soliciting, and I think we sent the last meeting we had a couple of months
I
ago.
apologize. That was an oversight. That item is going to the city council.
Perfect.
Next
All right.
meeting.
All right. That'll go. Really, we're going to hash this one out again. The answer to that is no, we're not.
Your work is done.
Perfect. That's what I like to
City
hear.
council just needs to review and make a
Awesome.
stop or
Awesome. So we're going to be responsible for another ordinance at some time that Captain Christian will have to look at and scrutinize very closely.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, now we have the Public Safety Committee annual work plan for 22-23. And hasn't that been finalized already?
the work plan itself has, but the in order to agendize all of the items, we just have them under this heading.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So we're going to have, so now the reports, and we have a highlighted report of the Disaster Preparedness Subcommittee Emergency Shelter Tour Report.
Right.
Would you guys like to report on that?
Charlie put together a formal document on the thing, and
Can you bring up my slides?
Sure.
Yeah.
Also, it's in your packet,
Yeah.
just so you know.
I don't think they made the packet, guys.
No, it's back.
It's in the last
Oh, the letter. Okay, the letter came in. Yeah,
not the slides.
the slides are, and it turns out that apparently you need to give the IT people here 3 months, 3 days heads up on a presentation on here. But Tanya pulled a miracle off and got this up there. So anyway, go to the first slide here. This has to do with this particular communication disaster preparedness subcommittee that Nick and I are on. And since the last meeting, we worked on the Red Cross emergency shelter, emergency food supply distribution, wireless priority service, and let's see. Go to the next slide. Okay, I think as that letter that's in the booklet kind of describes what we did. But Nick, you've been working this with Dave Adams, yeah. Why don't you go ahead and explain where we are now? Because I'm not exactly sure how far we've gone. And have we really located an emergency shelter?
Right.
Yeah.
We went, as you read this document that Charlie put together, we looked at, surveyed with Dave Adams, who is the representative for the Red Cross for this local area. And we did the aquatic center, we did the community center next to the library, and the Girls and Boys Club. We determined that the aquatic center will not work because there's not enough inside space to do that. It's not set up for that. It's a beautiful site, new, has all the restrooms and all that, but if you're going to bunk people in there, it's not acceptable on that. So we're targeting the community center and the Boys and Girls Club. If you've ever been to the Boys and Girls Club, that is a surprising, interesting building because it's got two major basketball courts, gymnasium type things. Now it's bigger than what it looks like. So anyway, the idea is to find out if those are acceptable to the Red Cross, and they do a site survey. And if it looks good, then we'll make a recommendation to the city council to designate that. So when the disaster hits or we have a mass care situation, evacuation, that's pre-set up. And you had to do that legally. It just doesn't happen by itself. The Red Cross doesn't designate. We have to designate and let them know. So late Friday evening, I got the word that the Red Cross manager in Orange County says let's proceed with this thing. So the volunteers are coming in and meeting with Kyle Kogler via the phone call so they can do the actual site survey. That survey is 5 or 6 pages, very small print, and they go soup to nuts through the entire place. So they don't. It helps them know what is available logistically and what they need to bring. So that's where we are on that. There is in the past, they've identified, we were talking about 5 years or so ago, they identified schools, the high schools and high school and elementary schools for these centers, but the school district's not real keen on having a mass care site, especially when school's in session. So we're looking at something a little different. So the city owns these properties, these auditoriums, and it'll be very beneficial, and there are different parts of the city. So that's where we are right now. We're waiting for that site survey from Red Cross to be conducted.
So down the line, if this is all blessed and this is going to be our spot, then it'll just be when something happens, that'll just immediately be the spot we.
That'll be the one where the city manager looks at his book and it says, "Yep, that's where we're going to go."
We had a look at the criteria the survey team will have, and I was kind of surprised to see that up there, and one of the top priorities was the ability to take care of pets, dogs, goats, and all sorts of things like that. That was kind of, I guess, the reflection on our culture today. That's an important criteria. And both of these sites do have that capability to do that.
Yeah, the reason for the pets is they've found in these disasters that people are looking for, they've been displaced, but if they eliminate pets out of the centers, they won't go in. And now we've got a lot of homeless out there in their cars and stuff like that. That's unacceptable too. So in the recent past, like 10 years or so, they've incorporated the pet part of the things, have that together. So.
We go to the next slide there, Tanya, please. Okay, after talking to the Red Cross and this, we're preparing for a disaster. We call it a mass disaster. There's 64,000 people, roughly, in the city of San Clemente. So I was concerned about how do you handle that, the logistics of that, handing out the food, the water, security, and all that sort of thing. And it turns out the Red Cross really is talking about, when they say mass disaster, they're talking maybe a couple hundred cots or beds in one of these emergency shelters. And so I wanted to find out a little bit more how the city of San Clemente itself could deal with the logistics of distributing food, because we're also exploring having food stored at various sites around the city. So I was thinking, well, the only organization I know that does that in San Clemente is the Family Assistance Ministry, called FAM. So I took a tour over there, and I was able to go through there, and there's summarize some things up there. Every 2.5 days, they go through 18 wheelers of food. And they have refrigerators, they have storage. It's in a old fire station, city fire station. They house over 1,600 women and children. They're taking care of a lot of people in a couple of homes. Their budget, it was $79 million for last year. And then a lot of the people receiving their assistance are seniors that have housing or are financially borderline. Go to the next slide. Then they have over 25 full-time people, a staff of over 1,000, maybe 1,300 people. And so if we're talking about the city responding to a disaster, it takes a lot of people, a lot of trained people to do that sort of thing. And so I don't think the city is going to ever be able to handle 64,000 people trying to distribute food. So we have to kind of reduce maybe the bar that we're looking at. But this is a photograph of the bulletin board that FAM has outside the garage where they hand out food to people that drive through. You can see on the left there, for the weekly clients that come through once a week, they've got what goes in the packages for different people. You know, they got a blessings bag, choice bag, produce bag, depends on, because all these people have been pre-screened to know what they are. You know, and on the right they have the monthly clients. Again, they have it all. If you see pantry boxes on that left column, different things, and then who gets what and how much, depending on the size of the family. So you start looking into distributing food, it gets pretty complicated, pretty fast, with a lot of people involved in the operation. So we don't want to forget those practical matters as we look into this particular aspect of distributing. It's not just simple, you know, we're not in and out or anybody like that. So we'll have to take that into consideration. And then the next slide, just out of curiosity, I said, well, if you had to build a shelter for people, like a 50-bed shelter, what would it cost and so forth? And this was Tony McAlpin, he's the director of development. He put this chart together. For 50 beds, he provided two options. One is basically just housing for people, in this case it's a single man. And you have to provide not only the beds, security, transportation, logistic meals, you have to have somebody to handle them, and mental health resources may or may not be. Option A doesn't have mental health resources, B does. And in addition to this just costs, if you look, the first year was $2.2 million for option A, and then it kind of, it doesn't cost quite as much the next year, $1.9 million. But the fine print down there that you probably can't read says costs do not include purchase, tenant improvements, or building lease. So there's another $10 million right off the top you'd have to add to this. So So the committee I did this basically to get our arms around the problem, what kind of money you might want to need if you're going to take care of people, quite a few people in a disaster, and provide, if it goes beyond these Red Cross shelters. So we're talking, in the tens of millions of dollars. Okay, the next slide then. Are there any questions on that? Okay. One other thing I would recommend, if you get a tour down there, get a tour at FAM just to see what they do. It's pretty impressive operation. Okay, I mentioned earlier when the gentleman from CERTS was talking about the Wireless Priority Service, or WPS, and there's some words up here, but basically what it is, if you are approved to be part of this under the, what's the entity? National Home Improvement, Homeland Security Service is behind this. If you are approved, if your police, fire, even the CERTS people, I don't know, maybe even us committee members, certainly the city council people, in an emergency, they can, if approved, their cell phone provider will ensure that by dialing *272 and the number, that you have a 95% probability of getting through to whoever you're talking to. In other words, you're not going to get that busy signal like most of us do during an emergency or something like that. So in the yellow, it just says basically people that are eligible for this sort of thing. Okay, the next slide then.
Kind of block it so nobody can call me.
The next,
Your number everywhere.
Yeah, the next slide just shows a block diagram on how it works. On the left, you dial *272 plus the number in a little pink box, and then it goes through the cellular network, cellular landline, and the switching system then gives you priority, and you'll reach your party with priority compared to just the general population. So that's sort of how the whole system works. And I've been trying to find out how in the world we get approved in the city to do this, and I talked to the next slide, please. The Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, to do this. Typical kind of a government issue, there's a lot of paperwork and so forth, and it's hard to find who actually you talk to. But this was a letter from that the agency contact after several of them saying, finally, if you contact ECD at CISA at DHS.gov, then you'll find the right paperwork to do this. So I think the committee should debate whether or not we should pursue this to the extent we find out what it takes, and then make a recommendation to the city council that they put people they think should be they have this priority.
Why didn't anybody sign that letter?
I think I didn't copy the bottom of it. I have the letter. Well, it's an email. I just copied the.
It's too much like CIA.
Email.
It's too much like CIA there.
It's just alphabet soup that I'm dealing with here.
No, this would be good to pass on to somebody. Maybe Adam. Maybe the city manager would be interested in this capability. You think?
I think it'd be an excellent idea for the council, for the city managers, the higher ups in the city to be able to communicate with each other.
Public safety.
Yeah, public safety, the chief, both the chiefs, all three of the chiefs.
So I would say this probably would be best directed to Keel Koger, our Public Works Director. His department oversees the Emergency Operations Center, and there's I'm on that team as well, but there's probably, I want to say 30 to 35 city folks and backups that are part of that team. I can talk with him about this and see how that can get worked into that program. And it would encompass, everybody that would be working on the city's behalf during an emergency.
And this could be a vehicle that's sooner than later. You could just bring it up at this capability, then you would figure out how to pursue this.
Well, Charlie, did you contact that email address that they said that information can be obtained by sending a request to? Do we have that information?
No, I don't. That's why I didn't present it. I got this the other day, so I haven't had a chance to follow it up.
That would be interesting, just to close that loop on what does it take to.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Are we even eligible? And what does that look like? What does that enrollment process look like?
Well, yeah, and you need a point of contact, is what they say within the city, who's responsible really for approving people to use it. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, all those companies are approved to do this. So
See, that's why I said city manager. I mean, Kyle isn't. He can't approve anything. I don't think like this.
Well, technically, his position is the director of emergency services in a time when an emergency is called. But I can see IT might have something to do with this. Charlie, why don't you just forward me this email to remind me? I will farm it out to the right people, and I can have a report back at the next meeting.
And also, could you, that chart that you had on the homeless shelter thing, could you forward that to Lisa Adone in Human Affairs? Because our work plan is nothing about shelters.
Yeah,
and I know they are discussing things all in that committee.
Yes.
And that might be valuable to them.
Yeah. Yes, and there was an item presented to the city council, I want to say it was in 2019, with an actual proposal.
By the dog park?
No, this was down the street here on, I believe it was 1020 or 1050 Calle Negocio, where the city manager's office was requested to identify a potential emergency shelter.
Oh, emergency! I was thinking homeless shelter. I'm sorry.
Well, it was a homeless shelter, but it was not permanent supportive housing. It was on an interim basis, and the costs were somewhat similar to what you had found. However, it had a building already constructed. Our anticipated cost of that program included a land lease and things of that nature.
It was like $2.5 million.
Tenant improvements. It was $2.5 million startup,
right,
with $2.5 million on an ongoing basis. So the first year was about $5 million, 2.5 every year after that. And that can be found on the city's website. If you have any problems finding that, or if you'd like me to direct you to it, I can do that.
You have some further stuff there?
Well, that concludes at least my input on that particular topic. Yes.
Okay, Nick, anything further on communication, disaster preparedness?
Yes, thank you for asking. Yes, thank you for asking. Abound Food Care. That's the one where food insecurity for the masses rather than just for the indigent folks. There is basically what we call an MOU that has been put together by the Abound Food Care folks, an agreement, and it's gone to Kyle Kroger, and he sent it to the city attorney and see if there's any changes and get that agreement. So that's in the works now, before they can place the cargo container with the frozen food and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's the latest on that. Let's see.
When are we going to get anything definitive on that frozen food?
It right now their definitive is we've got a draft agreement. It's in the city attorney's hands and Kyle's hands. When they come to an agreement between for any changes, and then if they can make sure that the Abound Food Care people agree to those changes, then I guess the contract or the MOU will be signed by the city council. But not until everything,
Yeah, so if that all works out and everything, we'll have frozen food to distribute. But Then we've got the logistical issue that I mentioned previously to deal with. How do we distribute it? What kind of security is needed? All those kind of issues. Do you think they would address that
Oh, yeah.
partially in
Yeah,
their
yeah, that's
contract?
part of their
In their presentation, that was kind of, it's like their circus, their monkeys kind of thing. I mean, they've got that all figured out and know how to respond. I mean, it wasn't like they're going to dump it here and say you're on your own.
Yeah, and it's every 8 months, so they're rotating the stock and stuff like that, and then they'll probably go to homeless shelters and things like that.
Yeah.
And the new stuff coming in as well. So things to be worked out. We just got to place this thing and start the program.
Anything else on this topic?
No.
Okay, we'll move down to the update on homelessness. And I wanted to ask I'll throw out this first. It's interesting with the CARE bill that Governor Newsom signed but didn't fund, where it said we could compel people with mental issues to be put in for treatment. Apparently, San Juan Capistrano has broken ground on some kind of mental facility there. Just found out this from one of their council people that they've identified. And I didn't get a chance to talk to him long enough to figure out what the deal was. But his feeling was this was going to be covered under the CARE bill.
Yeah.
And which is interesting, housing somebody for a year with, I don't know. I'm going to have to talk to him further. But that's they got some grant or something where they were actually doing a mental health facility. So I'll find out more about that. But that's the first city I've heard of that's actually done anything, since this new CARE bill's been up. Have you heard anything, Chief?
I have not.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to find out. Another thing I wanted to ask is, I should know this, but we have 3 different kinds of beaches in San Clemente. We have a city beach, we have a county beach. Poach Beach is actually a county beach. We have state beaches. Is it legal to drink on any of those beaches?
I would drink the water.
Yeah, especially after the rain. I know the city of San Clemente is you can't drink alcohol on the beach. I know on the county, I'm pretty sure there's no county beaches where alcohol's legal. And on state, does anybody?
I don't think you can on the state.
Yeah, so
you cannot.
Okay, so I didn't think so. Okay, I've been getting questions. Maybe people have been contacting you. They've been emailing everybody on North Beach. There's apparently been people just out on the beach drinking and doing drugs and whatever out in the open. And so they were asking me that is illegal. And I said I do believe it is, but I want to check to make sure. So for that part of it, homeless. I'd like to get together with. Maybe with Mike, and maybe we could get together with you and chat about strategies. Throw it around about what's been done in the past and maybe what's be done in the future different, just so we kind of have an idea about what your idea of a strategy is on homeless, and then under part of the legislative, what you think about the ordinances we have and what you might think about any possible ordinances in the future. And it's a complicated issue, but I like to sit down and just chat about it and get some ideas. So going forward, we can have a strategy about kind of what to do. So we'll do that sooner than later. Mike will set it up with you in the morning.
One thing I need to group watch.
Okay, well, we're not to that yet.
I'm sorry.
When we get that information, any comments about that? Does that seem like something reasonable to do?
Well, yeah, I have some comment. I think it's a reasonable thing to do, and I'll give you even a motivation to do it. Is because when the Human Affairs Committee was here, they talked about people using the RVs on streets and so forth. But the other aspect of it, I think, the public safety is these people that are mentally unstable, that are potentially self-destructive or and inflict damage to those of us here. Our community is concerned about that. In Senate Bill 1338, which is the CARE Act, and CARE is Community Assistance Recovery and Empowerment Act, that kind of overturns that Supreme Court case of Martin versus Boise, where people on the street could not be held anywhere more than 3 days for mental observation. Now the CARE Act will allow, particularly for the psychologically people that are diagnosed with that, to be held, like Rick said, up to 12 months with an extension up to 24 months. And there's a lot of hoops and everything that you have to go to, but Orange County has to have that in place by October of this year. Or if they don't, they're going to be fined $1,000 a day for every day that they don't do that. So Sheriff over there, you're going to be heavily involved in bringing people in from the street into the evaluation process for this CARE Act. And I'm just wondering, is the Orange County Sheriff's Department, are they aware of the CARE Act, SB 1338, and working on what they're going to do now when this thing is implemented? Because it's got to be implemented by October.
I can tell you, I wasn't aware of it. I don't know if the higher-ups are aware of it. I imagine if it's law, they're gonna become aware of it rather quickly. So, I mean, we take people in for evaluations all the time, right? So if it's one of those things that is mandated, we will do it, or if we have the leeway to do it, we'll do it.
You know what the problem is? I mean, it's not a 5150 because you drop them in 3 days. And we don't have the facilities to enact this. I mean, this is, where you're going to keep somebody for a year. You need treatment, a place, the food, and they didn't fund it. That's the problem. They said you can do it, but they didn't fund it. So that means the counties and cities would have to do it. So there's nothing. I don't think imminently there's going to be anything that the sheriffs are going to be able to do different than they're doing now, because there's no place to put these people. And I don't know if they expect by October to build these big facilities. I don't know. It's
find the personnel for it,
and
doctors,
and staff it. I know it was a great idea, but without funding it, it's like I said.
That was partly why I did that FAM exercise, to see what it take, put 50 beds and do mental health and all that sort of thing. You can see you're talking, but. Governor Newsom signed a bill for like $2 billion last year for exactly this kind of thing.
You just got to get it.
And there's no reason. And Janet Wynn is now Senate Minority Leader up there in Sacramento. And I've written her already about, we need $50 million here, to do something like that. So I think the Committee on Homeless needs to start pursuing, work. And this, I think we talked to Mark Enmeyer a couple weeks ago. He said that they're forming a committee on homeless to start looking for that kind of financial support. So maybe
the city council has enacted a committee with Mark Enmeyer and Victor Cabral from city council, and then they're going to pick some citizens to go out and strategize and try to figure this out. I know Enmeyer's all on it. He's been talking to Katie Porter and Katrina Foley, and he's working. So we'll see. We'll know about the same time everybody else will.
Well, it seems eminently doable if you just have the funding to do it.
Just take some money.
Like Adam said, there was a site up the street here where might be available too. That would save a lot of money.
But the $1,000 a day is a hell of a lot cheaper than $10 million. Okay, I pay that all day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so that's all I have new on homelessness. Is like to chat about long-term strategies as it affects the public safety, and the CARE Act, and then the new committee from the city council is going to be working on it, and we'll just report back. Legislative review. Had a subcommittee meeting with committee member Rower, and we talked about this a little bit. It seemed to be pretty obvious that he was going to handle the legislative portion from the fire side of it, and you can do the lifeguards too, because the
good guys.
The good guys, exactly. They're all the heroes and the good guys, and I would do it from the police side going forward, and if the shoe fits work, I guess. But anyway, and I gave at the last meeting the upcoming legislation that might affect police and or at least legislating. our new laws. We don't have I didn't find anything new on the police side, any new tools for the police to use that were really wonderful and it signed into law, California Penal Code. City, we haven't had anything new that we put in. All we're working on the what panhandling, whatever you want to call it. We'll see when that finally comes to fruition. And again, meet with the chief and see if there's anything he thinks we might be able to do to put ordinances that either they or the park rangers or or code enforcement can help manage our situation. So that's all I have on my side. Scott, you have?
On the fire side, not any big developments that have come to fruition. There's several issues that we monitor. Ambulance contracting and availability, destination, to Nick's point, the APOD issues and alternative destination legislation where paramedics and ambulances can transport people to destinations other than emergency rooms. Leave behind Narcan programs like that are headed by maybe our local emergency medical agencies, but services agencies, but nothing finalized yet. So keep an eye on a bunch of stuff.
And it's also a time when we give these reports. If anybody has any questions or suggestions, please feel free to jump in. It's so. Okay, with nothing else, Neighborhood Watch. I have one quick question for Adam. Last meeting I asked you about where those signs come from, and actually there's a couple of different signs in the city. Maybe they come from different places. I've got one in my neighborhood that's really nice, but it's different than the one Mike has. Have we figured out where those signs come from when we establish Neighborhood Watch groups?
Yes, and I did get a response on this. Let me. Just so I'm not misquoting anybody. All right. Yes, the city paid for, owns, and installed every one of them. The budget was cut when they. The budget was cut for the signs when there were some changes in the sheriff's department that reduced the amount of crime prevention support. The sheriff actually paid for the signs, but the city installed them and maintains them at this point. And right now there's no budget for those signs.
What does that mean?
Yeah, do we?
What
I'm not sure
exists
what that
currently
means.
is what the city is budgeted to have maintained. So if additional signs would be something that the subcommittee would want, or the committee would want to look into, that's going to have to be a budget request.
Wasn't there a budget allocated to the Neighborhood Watch program?
The budget was for about $1,000, just typical staff time, but then there's a $10,000 ask for a specific staff person yet to be identified to assist with the implementation of the program, working about 4 to 6 hours a week.
Okay, just cut that out and give us the $10,000 for the signs.
All right. So no staff resources, just sign.
What staff resources have we gotten so far?
Well, and where's that $10,000 going?
Yeah, where's that $10,000?
Well, the $10,000 needs.
Do you get to keep anything that we don't use?
Approved. Well, there's nothing that's actually been approved. That's the one item from the work plan that needs to go back to council because there hasn't been a staff person identified. And so it could be somebody in OCSD, and the OCSD contract would be potentially increased, or it would be city staff, and then we need to figure out who's going to be working on this part-time, because right now, everybody that we have is basically booked.
Okay. And I think I'll talk to when your person comes in with chat, maybe he might have a strategy or something, or which way to go.
Yeah.
So.
There's nothing magic about making a sign. You can get on the internet and I can duplicate those signs, for very little money. I've done that before with some HOA efforts that I've been involved in. So
sounds good.
These have to be
and
approved
there's
by the city.
local businesses here that make signs too. They're
Yes,
and
I was
you're
just
talking probably maybe at most $1,000 for I don't have.
They're probably less than that. The city where we do have budgets, they can tend to make a lot of signs for not a substantial amount of money. The only thing is that if we're talking about installation of signs in the public right of way, that is not something that the public gets to do. Contact Public Works or
It
myself.
has to be through the city.
Yeah.
All right, well, I was just asking if you figured out where they're from. I mean, I wasn't looking for solutions. So, I mean, now we know what we don't have, and we'll move forward with it. Time going. I was going to say the strategy. Mike and I got together and we talked about the strategy for implementing this neighborhood watch. And San Clemente Times article, waiting for a return call from Norb Garrett, who's the owner of San Clemente Times and all those. I think he will support it. Social media, release it on the local websites, San Clemente Cares, San Clemente Crime and Safety, all that. Contact with the HOAs. Dennis Camp, who's the president of the Talega HOA, is putting together a list. They have ambassadors for each neighborhood there already, and he's putting together that list, and he's going to give it to me so we can start hitting that. I went to the city website, and actually it does work. I said, yeah, I want to be interested, contact me, and I immediately got an answer, an email from the city, and I was copied onto that too, so I got it both on my personal email and my city email, so I know it works. I still would like to see a graphic on there of some kind instead of just the generic government-looking heading. We talked about McGruff the crime dog, and that didn't get on there, but I mean, even maybe a photo of police and some citizens or something. We just take a photo and put that on there, so when they go to the website, it looks like something different than, signing up for a Parks and Recs class. So that's what.
So we pulled the blurb out of that packet, that I'll call it an informational brochure. But did you actually want McGruff the dog?
No, I think I think always use that as an example. And if you couldn't come up with any other,
we could probably. I don't know enough about this program to know what logos and things that we can use.
I think even just a photo of some sheriffs and some citizens, a demographic, just a thing that this is community and the police, this is neighborhood watch. I don't think we need a logo. Just something besides, like I say, the thing that you go on to figure out if it's illegal to leave your trash cans out 2 days in a row. And just something, a little snappy, a little spot, a little saucy.
One of those neighborhood watch signs.
Yeah.
Well,
You're talking about marketing.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Honestly, I think this is your project.
Okay.
Correct us.
We'll talk about. We'll come up with something.
some of the neighborhood watches in LA, they have like a little burglar on, as on a thing. So a little mask. Chief, have you seen anything in neighborhood watch that you recommend?
I hadn't been looking for it. This is a new position for me, so I've got some things to do.
Maybe
no, I haven't. Other than I've seen the burglar one, and of course McGruff back in the day. But
maybe a Chilean flag.
It's possible.
On wings.
Well, anyway, so we I think we have the strategies to launch it. We have to. I think the newspaper article needs to coincide with when we're actually jumping out and launching it. So that's it. You have anything else on?
Yeah, I contacted Neela Height, and she had come in through the website and found out that they had a meeting a few months ago. 70 people showed up at this church, and nobody has followed up. Tony was there, but I think it fell on the other person to follow up, and nobody's followed up. They've started their own Facebook group. They're really active. And so I'm going onto their Facebook group, and then we'll try to fold them in as we go. But they had 70 people show up for a meeting. That's not too bad.
No, that's impressive. And on February 10th, when Ryan Case gets here as our new CPS, it's going to be a big push to get that program a little more bolstered up than what it is. Yeah, there's definitely a need for that.
Yeah, I've heard that this guy, because I mean, some people in that position are more hot on neighborhood watch than others, and this guy, he had at least a couple of cities trying to bring him in because they know the guy's apparently really, really good. So I'm optimistic. So
I don't know if I shared this last time, but I live in a condominium complex that is like a circled street here, and we had a package stolen in number 2, and reached out to the young man in number 3, and he had his Ring doorbell, and he saw this kid walking back up the road. Well, he was going up the road, not out the driveway. So I'm going, well, this kid lives somewhere in the neighborhood. So we circulated a picture to some of the people in the complex, and about half an hour later, somebody called me and said, he's in number 29. I went up to number 29. Here's the kid in the driveway with his little sister. I said, do you recognize this kid? And he said, no. I said, it's your little sister. Well, that's you. So brought his grandfather out, and they were staying with their grandfather. He went and got the thing out of the bushes, and we had it returned to number 2. But the neighborhood watch works. Something stolen, somebody's got a video, other people, there it is. So, I mean, it's a working program.
Yes, it is. Oh, yeah.
Any other comments? And you're all going to join your future block captain right there. Okay, statistical information review. Do we have anything?
I don't have a report on things. We didn't meet over the 2 months that we were off, but Scott,
we promised to meet.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to mention something on the review. Chief Mall, I appreciate your earlier comment, because we did talk about his presentation on statistics. And also I looked on the website for Captain Benfield would present the Orange County Sheriff's Department performance measures as well in those 3 different categories.
He didn't mention that to you?
No, he didn't.
When he left?
It referred to crime statistics?
Yes, they're on. In fact, they're on the city website too. Yeah, it was good that he would do that, because he has a plethora of requirements, and I think somebody mentioned e-bikes for the fire department. That would be a good place to put in the e-bike interfaces and whatever you're doing in that area, accidents, tickets, warnings, whatever, because the public would really like to get, well, frankly, I would like to get some real facts and not all these hysterical kinds of things you hear from a lot of people about e-bikes. So I think you could play a very important role by adding that to it. So maybe next time you can come prepared and show us, at least talk about your statistics. So I know you're going to take some time to get up some speed, so I don't want to put any pressure on you.
I appreciate that.
But you have 4 weeks.
Are you referring just the stats on the e-bike, or are you looking for other stats as well?
I'm sorry?
Are you specific to the e-bike stats, or are you looking for all the other crime stats as well?
Well, yeah, just the whole package, really.
Yep.
I think, like Mike said, somebody said they wanted the e-bike. Was it UNEP? Wanted the e-bikes specifically, yeah. But I think the statistical group should look at the Sheriff's Department, what they're doing here in San Clemente as well. And you throw in a few stories about what you've done to, and Chief Mall, you might want to do that too, about that kind of tell us what your people are doing and why we're paying them.
I've got a story.
Really
I've got a
good
story about him. I'm going to tell you.
Okay, well, that's what
I do. I really.
we've been doing.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm going to hand that off now to the new people that are assigned to that task.
Right. Anything? Okay. Human trafficking. I've been trying to get in touch with Brenda Wells for like 2 months now to see what we need to do to help her with.
Really?
She's been out of town. And I did run into her husband a couple of days ago, and she's been running all out of town for business, and they were on family vacation. But he promised me that she's going to call me when she's back in town. So we figured out what we need to do on this award thing or plaque thing. So, did you know that her husband was a Marine aviator and flew Marine One, which is who flies around the president? I mean, I just thought he was a guy. I mean, but he flew around Bush. He was the chief pilot for when Marine One takes him off and flying them all over the country, and then they pack the helicopter and fly it over to Europe, and then have the helicopter stand by. Amazing. I just thought he was just a guy.
Just a guy.
An important guy. Anyway, so I will get back on the human trafficking update when I talk to her. E-bike safety and e-bike / traffic safety update.
Yeah, can you go to the Tanya, the next slide? Okay, there's what we've been doing. Not a whole lot. Scott and I, we had a meeting scheduled and I didn't show up. I apologize.
I was going to keep that for you and me.
We're only human, but I'll try and do better because I do enjoy having lunch there at the golf course and talking business. But anyway, Scott and I are on the committee for 2023, and some of the things that we've done here is review a lot of the material is shown on this chart. And then Rick and I met with Mark Enmeyer about a number of things, and e-bikes was brought up. It's clearly, on the top attention list of the city council. So the next chart, then, I'm going to go over what I presented before a little bit, but the next chart, this just shows these are the only ordinances that San Clemente has. You can't ride a bicycle and you can't drive animals on the city streets. And then they've got the one there that precludes people riding their bicycle down on the trail down on the beach. So that's the only thing we have right now that I could find in city ordinances. Clearly, the city's going to come up with something. The next one, the next slide. Nick sent me a LA Times article called "E-Bikes May Bring Mayhem to Orange County," and this is a screen dump of that. And if you look, and it's all about San Clemente and what's going on in e-bikes. And in yellow there, it says, even after the prohibition along the beach trail, San Clemente officials are still looking at ways to improve e-bike safety across the city. Mayor Chris Duncan, he is our mayor now, said, ideas include adding more bike lanes and possibly enacting a training program. And that's certainly the top level things we should do. But it's a very interesting article to read if you get a chance. I don't want to read the whole thing. Don't want to take time for that. But basically, Chris is concerned about having children hurt riding a bicycle. Let's see. Next slide, Deb. Of course, I think the next slide is this new Assembly Bill 2028 that says, okay, that laws and ordinances about e-bikes and bicycles now up to this point was really a function of law enforcement agencies. Now this law opened it up to school districts, to cities, to other organizations. So, and then it was a bill passed by Lori Davies, District 74 now, I guess it is. So the city can do a lot, schools can do a lot now, and kind of offload what some of the law enforcement people have to do. The next slide, okay, this was the conclusion that I came up with last year in November. Like Chris Duncan, I'm more concerned about the youth riding e-bikes in San Clemente than I am the adults. The adults pretty much do what they want, and if you don't believe me, just go down there to the beach trail and see who rides e-bikes down there. And that's another thing. One of the things I wonder is, have anybody written any $100 fines to people that are riding the trail down there from your organization?
No, the park rangers and code compliance staff are not equipped to make vehicle stops.
Lifeguards have.
Yeah, but
You have
One ticket.
one ticket? Okay, well, that's sort of shows, that what can you do with adults anyway, but, Mike, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Chief, you guys have an excellent reserve program. Would it be kind of a fun thing for the reserves to pick a couple days and just go down and ticket on the beach trail?
Yeah, it's something we can look into for sure.
Because it won't take your manpower off the street, and
Right.
a lot of reserves like, fun stuff and, hanging out at the beach is not too bad.
Yeah, it's definitely something we can look into.
Thank you.
Yeah, that problem was brought up in that LA article, but we weren't enforcing it, and it's something probably we
And
should.
if everyone brings $100 in, that's money for the city.
And that too,
That's great.
Anyway, this was something that Scott and I think we want to pursue, is work first with the schools. And we've got the support of Councilman Enmeyer on this, because he's a teacher involved with the Capistrano School District. So I think we should probably focus on the young people, middle school and so forth first, and then work on some other things you'll see what other cities are doing, what other countries have actually done, because they've had e-bikes from China and Europe and France for a lot longer than we've had. Okay, all right, that's the last chart, I think. Okay, well, why don't you just run through these real. These are the fire. Yeah, go to the next chart. This is for Captain Christian. No, keep going. One more. I guess okay. I take it back. I didn't put the Orange County Sheriff's Department performance measures in here. Okay, that's it. I think that's the last slide.
Any comments? Technology review?
Well, we're looking for something, and short of nothing new, but we got old, the flock license plate reader thing. We're getting really close. Installation on the first phase is in, and the Sheriff's Department is doing a training on that, from what I understand.
Flock is doing that for us at our academy.
But is that a departmental thing or just for our little city?
No, it's department-wide, but we have a number of our staff going to that,
Good.
including myself.
And I look forward to having that thing get some results, right?
Yeah, the first phase is up and running now. They are getting results. I've got people giving me some success stories, so I can report back on some of those shortly.
Yeah, because those stories, I think we can compel to get more cameras. I think once the council sees what they're doing, I think they would be compelled to fund more cameras sooner than later.
Right. And then the integration with the HOAs like Talega into the system. I don't know where that's at or what kind of agreements need to be met.
Yeah, it's from my understanding of it, talking to my investigators, it's not an issue at all. It was a couple of years ago, but it seems to be smoothed over now. So, and I'm getting notifications from other agencies as well, asking for permission to view our cameras. So, any one of those I get, I approve it so that we're getting the same in return.
Great.
One of the things that I've seen them put up their smoke with all some bars underneath, but it's in front of the grocery store over there. And I think I forget if I had Nick was like talking to you, and somebody said, well, because I thought they would be put at the on ramps and off ramps on the freeways. That way they would catch just about everybody. But it looks like
it's Caltrans property. Yeah.
You can't do that. Yeah, they have to be on city property.
It's another bureaucracy that you don't even want to get involved with. You know, that DOT, Caltrans, just they're very hold their property very close.
Well, does the sheriff think it would be give us better information if they were located in those spots? I know it's a tough job.
Oh, I'm sure.
If it's worth the benefit, somebody's willing to go up against the Department of
The
Transportation.
locations that the city's looking at putting and has already put them are on the ingress and egress points, just not on the Caltrans property. So it's just off of that inside the city. So it is capturing the freeway off ramps and on ramps.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
You just can't get that close to the freeway.
Yeah. Okay. As far as technology, the other thing, that wireless priority system, I kind of considered that as a technology issue. I brought that up. I brought it up earlier in the meeting,
Right.
but it kind of falls into this heading. Back to you, Rick.
Okay. Any urgent matters that we need to discuss to send immediately to the city council? That being said, no. Okay, reports. What we do now, Chief Christian, is we give you a little opportunity to summarize anything special that hasn't come up or any, shout outs whatsoever. It's not required.
No, I was just going to say that both items I wrote down in preparation were about the flock, the update on the cameras, and that we are in phase 2, or it's nearing install, and just the notification that we are hiring a CPS, Ryan Case, who starts on February 10th. So, as you already mentioned, I look forward to him being very instrumental in getting Neighborhood Watch up to date and some other exciting things as far as social media is concerned. So I think the guy's going to be off and running. I don't think there's going to be much direction needed with him. He seems very motivated with a lot of ideas of his own. So looking forward to that.
All right, Chief Mall.
From the fire service, from OCFA, our end, like I mentioned, those Station 67 opened out in Rancho Mission Viejo. It's in your notes there. So that was really good. And then with that addition was Truck 56, responding out of Station 56 off of Antonio La Pata area. So that's giving us another truck. We did have a firefighter of the year last year. Corey Larson was recognized in November, which was really neat ceremony down there with the San Clemente Exchange Club. And as I spoke to last time a little bit, the Firehawks that we purchased, those are moving along. I just got pictures today of them being painted, so still projecting those to arrive hopefully like late fall of this year already. So that will be good. And other than that, I did get clarification for notes wise. In the month of December, we did have one e-bike accident that our crews went on. It was a 12-year-old riding about 20-25, hit a parked car and went up and over the top. So we took the patient as a trauma to the hospital. Obviously.
Were they helmeted?
Helmeted and buckled. Buckle actually was marked as one of the injuries was the strap, but it was buckled. Because we do see that a lot where they're not buckled. So yeah, good report for us.
Yeah, one question for you, Chief. In your quarterly report, the Orange County Fire Authorities opened up a new station 67 over there in Rancho Mission Viejo. And it's a temporary station. They're going to tear it down when they get enough money to build a new station. That's kind of like sort of a radical idea.
So yeah,
I understand that.
That station was put there by Rancho Mission Viejo themselves. So it's a temporary fire station that the community put there. The permanent stations slotted. It's being built out with the communities. So if you go look at Station 67, it's out Cow Camp. Pretty much when you hit the end of where homes are built, there's a temporary fire station. It's actually beautiful. It's a modular fire station, and it's actually really nice. But they're slotted to build a new station kind of up on the hill once those homes go in 2030. So along with as that community grows, they've been real diligent about putting fire stations in. And like I mentioned, they increased, added a second unit coming out of Station 56, being that truck there. So it's really good, and it does help us down in San Clemente. As I mentioned, we're regional, and that shot down La Pata is pretty quick into Talega and stuff. So it's good.
Yeah, it's a pretty innovative idea. Do you know where the funding came for that? Was it from the developer or the city or
the developer, Rancho Mission Viejo themselves? Yeah. And it's a beautiful. I don't know what their plan is with it once the fire station's out of it. But if you guys ever have time, I would definitely go look at it. It's pretty neat.
It's modular. Can they take it apart and put it somewhere else?
They could.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's on a great piece of land.
Yeah, got them a lot.
Well, welcome. Apologize for being late.
We didn't notice.
Had a little incident down at headquarters. Loud noise, and then all of a sudden smelling smoke coming out of the register. So we had to call 911 and get our public safety partner OCFA on scene. And Mayor Duncan was on a ride along, so he came down to Station 56.
Perfect.
Your crew. So their response time was about 90 seconds because they're within the area of Bear Coast, maybe.
They may have.
So I would expect in the next quarter your response time will be sharper than the 703. But anyways, all that said, welcome, Chief Christian. I got a chance to meet him a couple Fridays ago, I think it was. So look forward to working with him and obviously Chief Mall. As you know, from the last time we met was in November. We had 8 rescues, we had 456 prevents, 721 public ads, 11 first aids, and 737 ordinances, and just over 200,000 visitors. And you kind of look at the weather and go, wow, who's coming to the beach? Definitely winters here with all the amount of rain, wind, and surf that we've had. We've had the king tides. Had to move one tower, because of those tides in the surf. We did have some surf on January 6th. They're saying the biggest surf in 50 years. The biggest surf that we saw here was 10 foot. We were prepared to close up here if that was necessary. It wasn't. So we finished out the year with over 1,900 rescues for 2022. So one thing I'm very happy about with the men and women that work there, we've gone 43 years with one drowning that was medically related. So really stoked on that. And drownings happen any time of the year. Some people say, well, why do you have lifeguards this time of the year? There's no one here. Just 2 Sundays ago, there was a 21-year-old bodyboarder, surfer, well-known from Dana Point, that drowned at Salt Creek. So it can happen anytime, any day, and it was right in the middle of the day. So it's a sad thing, but it does happen. So there's a good reason why lifeguards are on staff. So for us, the biggest thing, for the class count that I spoke about, I think maybe in November, met with a consultant a few times, and that's in the works, and met with HR, my direct supervisor. So I think the goals at the end of January, maybe the middle of February, that study will be finalized and brought to council. So we'll keep our eyes open for that. Coming up here, we have our JG swim test that registration will open on February 15th. As a report last year, we had 840 kids go through the program. So if you know anyone, kids that are going to be 9 years or older to 16 that are interested, those swim tests, there's 8 of those that'll be coming up. We have recurrent training that's coming up at the end of February, and then our rookie training academy starts on March 4th, and it'll go 5 consecutive weekends. And outside of that, we're about 1 month away from spring break happening. It's kind of hard to believe with all the rain and whatnot, but our spring break lasts about 6 weeks because you have Utah, Arizona, and all the other counties that are on different schedules here. And the last thing, as I think Rick was asking, kind of inquisitive about, is alcohol allowed on city beaches, private beaches, state beaches, county beaches. There's been just an influx of encampments, and some large ones at North Beach, and we continue to work with our partners to remedy that. And for us, as being up at North Beach, it's kind of limited for us. The resources, we run about 3 people a day, so it's not just close an eye. It's report it and hope that we get some assistance with those. So, but as of today or the other day, that huge encampment was gone off the beach right there. So that was good to see. But they come and go. So, anyways, that's all I had to report. If anyone has any questions, happy to ask.
Always great positive news. Okay, Scott, anything?
Oh, I thought you're the committee chair.
I'm going to go last.
Oh, okay.
Because you might say something I was going to say, and we'll just get out quicker.
I'll be quick. I want to welcome Captain Christian. I look forward to working with you. I just want to thank all of our public safety partners as we roll into the new year. It's been a really tough beginning of 2023 for our law enforcement brothers and sisters. Riverside County Sheriffs has lost 2 of their own within 2 weeks, and it's tragic to see. And we've had 3 mass shootings in the state in the last 72 hours, and that's also tragic to see. But our law enforcement partners continue to hold that line every day and keep us safe, and we're very thankful for that. Chief Ball, our fire partners, have done a great job. We rolled into December seeing record rain, mud flows, multiple swiftwater rescues. You guys continue to provide all hazard, all risk emergency response. And as soon as we came out of that, we were right into Santa Ana weather, and it changes like that. And you guys staffed right through the holidays, right through increased call volumes, right through increased demands for service, in the middle of an ongoing staffing crisis that I know you endure because we endure it too. And no one wants to be at work on Christmas, but we are all fully staffed on Christmas. And then Captain Malott, I know you guys maintained your full staffing right through the holidays, right through King Tide, like you said, the biggest swell we've seen in 15 years, and maintained your perfect record of marine safety for all of our beach visitors, and I thank you for that.
Hey, Mike?
Just welcome, Chief. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Nick?
Okay. Welcome aboard. I was informed through email that the month of March is Tsunami Awareness Month. Are you aware of that? You don't have to commit. So I'm if you want to get back to those folks at OES, Cal OES has put this thing on. It's impossible because they don't give you any phone numbers. But I was able to weasel my way through. Hopefully, I'm going to try to get something online maybe for next month on what that is. Because we are a beach community and subject to tsunamis, and that leads into the disaster preparedness end of it. Okay? So, more to follow.
Committee Member Hightower.
Captain Malott, thank you very much for that report. What you do down there brings so many people into San Clemente, and it's just really good for the economy here and the enjoyment of life here. And the residents really appreciate that too, so thank you. And same for you, Chief, both Chief and Captain over there. Appreciate. I just say ditto to what Scott just said. Frankly, we're in awe of what you guys do and the dedication that you provide to keep our residents safe in the city.
Okay. A couple things. Just want to leapfrog on that. You know, I'm a big fan of yours, Captain Malott, and I'll tell you that we did approve that drone for you through the Friends of San Clemente. You are going to get a new drone.
Awesome.
That's
Thank you
all
very much.
because of you. So, and then I also want to thank Chief Mall. Incident happened a couple of months ago now. We had one of our city council members was assaulted. And actually, it was assault with a deadly weapon. It was a major thing. We got really great response from the deputies. Captain Christian, I want you to know they were right there, handled the situation in a fashion I don't know how they could have done it any better. And Chief Mall, to tell you what kind of guy he is, on the scene, of course. And when our council member was transported to the hospital, Chief Mall beat them to the hospital. And the council member's wife was in a really tough state. She was really shaken. Chief Mall sat with her during the process, and I mean, that's going over and beyond. You can't ask any more for that. Just so impressed with all of our public safety officials. Also want to thank, I don't know, we have a late entry from 3 members of our Human Affairs Committee, Chair Adone, Rosemary Salas, Michelle Granville-Brooks, who are working hard in the other aspects besides public safety. We have the social aspects here of the city, and they're really, really involved in doing some great things. We have some great people who volunteer and do things for the city. We really, really do. And it's not for the applause, it's all for the cause. And I just want to thank them and thank other committee members. And what are you?
We were just downstairs in our meeting, and we thought we'd come up and say hi to all of you and thank you for everything you guys do, and welcome to our communities.
Awesome. You okay, Mike?
Yeah.
You're going to go and do the Heimlich and stuff up here.
I know I did the self one with back in the chair.
With that, another great meeting. Look forward to seeing all you next month. We have a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
All right.
Out.